Alright, well this is like the fourth time that I've taken this video, and the last time I took it, it was about 30 minutes long, so I'm going to try my best not to do that this time. So I'm going to very basically show you what I did for my final project. I'm going to pull that up real quick, and it should still be in my htdocs folder. Open up, yes I know. I'm going to open up the XAMPP control panel to start up the server, just so that I can actually run what I need to run. So I'm going to open up an old project called Toggle Pictures, and it should look pretty familiar. Here's the old one with no jQuery involved. It shows the next image that will appear when you click on it. Pretty simple. Uses a lot of lines of code, not very efficient, so I recently redid it with jQuery, and it makes it a lot better, and I added a cool little animation to it, so I'll show you that next. And then once I've gone through and shown you what each of these do, I will show you the source code of it. Alright, so this is the jQuery version of it. It shows you what the next image is going to be, but when I click it, it makes the image move across the screen. jQuery has a nice function called animate, which will move your HTML element to the pixel that you specify. So I said move it over here, and then it changes, and then I said move it back. So I can show you that here in a bit when I'm looking at the actual source code of the project. As you can see, it works the same as it would on the other one, except this text is different just because I didn't want to type it all out, and there's an animation. That's really all that's different, but the amount of lines of code needed is much less, so I'll show you that here in a minute. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the states and caps thing that we did just recently. This is without jQuery, or this version is, I mean. Make sure everything's working correctly. Alright, so here is my map, or the learning version of it. So what you do is you click on a state, and it brings up an image of the state, and the data derived from the JSON file. And then here you press go back to go back. It hides this entire div. Basically, from the top of the screen to the bottom of the screen, this is all its own div. This was hidden from the user at the start. So when you click go back, it hides all of this and makes what was previously visible visible again, and it makes this invisible. See? So here's the image map visible again, and if you click on a different state, say main, takes the image of main, and you get all of the data from the JSON file, and you say go back, and it'll work for any case. Now I'm going to go to the student side. I'm just going to use my name, because why not? You start the test. Gives you a state, random state. Looks like it's Illinois, I think. I'm not really going to take the test, though, because I'm not great at this. I'm a programmer, not a geographer. So, yeah. I'm going to go through all the different states. Click enter. Gotta do this 50 times, so it's going to take a minute. And with the jQuery, this is a lot better, which I will show you here in a minute. It's very nice, the difference that I made of jQuery with the image. Alright, so I'm done with the test. Now I click results. There's my results. Gives me a table, populates it, and in this version, it's quite a bit of lines of code. With jQuery, it takes a lot less. So next I'm going to show you the jQuery version of this, and then I'll show you the source code for each one, and I'll put them next to each other just to show you the differences. Alright, so here's the jQuery version of it. It looks identical. That's because it really is aesthetically. But the difference here, there's not really much of a difference on the map. Visibly, you can't really see any difference. It does the same thing that it normally would, just with less lines of code. So I'll show you that here in a minute. I'm not going to go too many states, but here I actually set up a way for me to do this quicker. So if I type my name into this and I start the test, it automatically puts the name of the state, so the state and the capital for me. But if it's any other name, it won't work. I also changed the image so that it's always the same size. As you could see before, it was making the web page scroll up and down every time because the images were different sizes. Now I can click results and it'll do the same thing. But this time, I got everything correct. It displays everything the same way, but the way this is done is completely different. And I think looks better and is more efficient. So I'll show you that here in a minute once I look at the source code. And I'll go ahead and show you this too, just to prove that it is working. You log in, and there it is. There's there's one where I got 100%, and there's one where I got 0%. And the 0% is still in the cache from the other final proj, because that's also local storage. It shares the same local storage because it's the same browser. It's all in the same cache. So in order to get rid of the old data, I just click clear data, and it's all gone. So now I'll show you some of the source code just to show how different it is from how it was. All that's over here. I've got another monitor over here. It makes it very nice to do this. So here's the source code for TogglePix, the original one. As you can see, there's a lot of lines of code, lots of variables needed for the different HTML elements of the web page. And now I'll bring up the jQuery version of it. As you can see, there's only really 3 functions. That's a lot less in comparison. Because before I'd have a function for everything. But in here, I really only need an onClick function, which you can specify in jQuery. Right here is where I've got the animation that moves the picture, which isn't necessary, but I thought it would look cool, so I put it in there. This part takes the value from the button. You can use jQuery to get information from your HTML objects, which is really nice. I mean, it works about the same as it would in JavaScript, but it's a lot less to write, and I think it's a little more convenient in a long-term project. And here I'm just, specifying the height and width, same as I was doing in the states and caps, which I'll show you after this. But not much really had to be done here. It's more efficient. It does the same thing, but with less lines of code, and you can do multiple things with one line of code, which is really convenient in comparison to the original. That's why I think jQuery is definitely the way to go if you're going to be altering HTML elements a lot. So next I'll show you the states and caps. Make sure I'm not going over on time. Ooh, I'm at the 10-minute mark, so I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. Sorry. So here's the map on the non-jQuery one. And one thing I forgot to mention, in jQuery, you have to link the jQuery library, which is hosted online, which is a convenient way to do it because you don't have to worry about updating the code ever, because they will do it for you. But you can download the library yourself and implement it in the folder of your project if you want. Doesn't really matter if you do or not. But here, you've got all these variables. See 7 lines of variables, which I turn into 7 lines of functions, jQuery functions, and I don't have to do it multiple times, and it's very convenient. Basically, all of this right here is gone, and it goes down here, does everything that's here, but on one line, and it's very convenient, which I will show you here. Alright, so this is all the same, but right here is what I was talking about. All of those variable declarations are eliminated by the fact that you can just use this ID right here to hide that stuff, to show the stuff, to change the attributes. It's really convenient in comparison because I don't have to declare all these variables. And it's the same idea as taking the ID of the element, but you don't have to say document.getElementById. Instead, you just say the ID of the element that you want with this syntax right here, $ parentheses, and a hash mark next to your ID. And then you just say the function that you want. So hide, or if I wanted to, I could have said toggle, because if something's visible and you have a toggle function, it'll make it invisible. If it's invisible, then it'll become visible by the toggle. That's just one of the other conveniences of jQuery. But mostly on this one, I didn't do a whole lot of jQuery, mostly just changing this right here to be jQuery. So I eliminated all that and I changed this to jQuery. I'll show you the more convenient part of this in the test HTML. And here I used a new function. Oh yeah, and here's the library. There's a Google API and there's also a Microsoft version that you can use. And both of them are found on the W3 Schools website. So if you want to use jQuery, you just need to make sure that you have this linked to your project. But here, I've got this $.getJSON, and you don't have to specify the directory, which is really convenient. As long as it's within the same folder as your HTML file, it'll open it, no problem. And this value right here, data, is the JSON parsed string. So it's an array with all the objects already in it. It's one line of code as opposed to what we had to do previously with the HTTP request. So that's different. jQuery makes that quite a bit easier. It's just this one little function here and it does it all for you. But right here is where I'm taking and creating a new an array of objects with the test from my test right here, my JavaScript file with the class in it. So I create those, use them, and then here I alter to hide and show stuff. You've already seen that. Here I use the ID of the text boxes. Is that right? Yeah. Here's where I'm populating text boxes so that I can just answer it really quick and always have it right. I just did that to get through it really quickly. But here is where I'm actually changing the image with the attribute of source. And I concatenate test slash with the string stored in the array, which is really convenient, makes it easy to dynamically create the images. Same as it would before, but here it's one line of code. I don't have to have a specific variable for it, and it just saves up on variable space. And here I'm also making it so that it's always 500 pixels. That does make it a little bit distorted, but that's okay. It's not that big of a deal. Everything else works the same. It all works the same. I didn't change any of the functionality. The only differences are that I cut down on the lines of code needed. Like in this reset focus, 3 lines of code as opposed to 5. It's not that big of a difference, but it's easier to read, I think. You got your text box 1, your text box 2, and you're setting them to clear. And then you just reset the focus, because jQuery has a focus function. Same as JavaScript. And then here, I think, is the shining part of this program, is that I'm appending on a new row to the table. So the table is my ID, and I'm appending on to the last part of it a new row with each column right here in this one line. And I'm saying that if they got it right, then have the string correct as the last one. Otherwise, have the string as incorrect. Otherwise, it's exactly the same, and it works exactly the same as it would. But it takes a lot less lines of code, which I think is very convenient. And here you just got your math to find out the score, and then you got your local storage. Everything works the same as it would. So, I think that having jQuery makes these old projects work a little bit better. It took a while to implement it the way I wanted to, but once I really learned how to do it, it's a lot more convenient than just using basic JavaScript. I'd recommend learning jQuery to any new web developer, just because it makes it so much more convenient and you don't have to have nearly as many variables. The only variables you need are really like your regular object-oriented variables. Otherwise, you don't have to have them. You can just use IDs. Well, that's the video. Hope you liked it.